You changed your opinion before speaking, not because you were wrong, because you read the room and decided the truth wasn't worth the reaction it would produce. So you adjusted. You softened the edges. You said a version of what you thought instead of what you actually thought. And nobody noticed, because you've been doing this for so long that the adjusted version comes out automatically now. You rewrote the message 3 times, not because the first version was unclear, because it was too direct, too honest, too much like someone who knew what they wanted and wasn't apologizing for it. So you rewrote it, made it warmer, added the qualifications, removed the parts that might make them uncomfortable, sent the 3rd version, and waited for a response that would tell you whether you'd calibrated correctly. You stayed quiet when you wanted to speak. The meeting, at the dinner table, in the conversation where someone said something you knew was wrong and you felt the words forming, and then you felt the room and you let the words dissolve. Because it wasn't worth it. Because the friction would follow you home. Because being right wasn't as important as being easy to be around. And later that night, lying there, you realized something disturbing. You weren't living your life anymore. You were managing other people's reactions. The decisions you made that day, about what to say and what to withhold, about how to present yourself and which parts to hide, were not your decisions. They were negotiations between who you are and who you calculated would be acceptable to the people around you. And somewhere in all of that negotiating, you had become someone you would not have chosen to be. This is not a small problem. This is the problem. Most conversations about approval stop too early. They say you seek validation, that you need people to like you, that you are afraid of rejection, and their solution is always the same. Care less. Be more confident. Stop needing approval. But that is not the real problem. The real problem is predictability. Think about what happens when someone learns exactly what you need to hear, when they discover the kind of praise that makes you soften, the kind of attention that makes you overlook things, the kind of validation that makes you doubt yourself less. They now have a map, not because they are master manipulators, most aren't, but human beings are constantly learning what works. And when they discover that a compliment changes your behavior, that distance makes you anxious, that approval makes you compliant, they use it, usually without even realizing they are doing it, because it works. This is what Machiavelli understood. The prince who needs to be loved is not dangerous. He is predictable, and predictable people are easy to influence. The moment your direction depends on a response from someone else, your direction no longer belongs entirely to you. That is why approval becomes a vulnerability. Not because validation is evil, because dependence creates handles, and every handle can be used. The moment your happiness depends on someone's approval, that person has power over you. Not power they declared, power you gave them, without signing anything, without realizing the transfer was happening, simply by needing something from them that they can choose to withhold. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He watched it operate in every court he ever studied. The advisor whose ambition made him manageable, the general whose hunger for recognition made him predictable, the ally whose need for validation made him a tool rather than a partner. The need was never the thing itself. The need was the handle by which others could pick you up and aim you. But here is what most people miss when they hear this. The solution is not indifference. It is not the performance of not caring, the cultivated coolness of someone who has decided to feel nothing so that no one can use their feelings against them. That performance is its own trap. It is still organized around other people. It is still reactive. It is still, at its core, a response to the fear of being controlled. And fear-based responses always leave you less free than you were before. The solution is selectivity. Understanding that some opinions deserve access to you and some do not. That the person who has shown you, over time and through evidence, that they want your genuine best, that person's view of your choices is worth something, worth sitting with, worth updating on. Their approval is not a need, it is useful information from someone you trust. But the colleague who has never invested in knowing you, the family member whose criticism has never once led to your improvement, the person in your life whose approval you have been chasing for years without understanding why, their opinion of your choices is not information, it is noise, and you have been organizing your life around noise. The quieter, harder, more important question is not, how do I stop caring what people think? It is, whose thinking is actually worth caring about? Because caring is not the problem. Indiscriminate caring is the problem. The person who cares deeply about the opinions of people who have earned that access, who updates their understanding based on input from those who genuinely know them, is not someone who needs to stop caring. They are someone who is practicing one of the rarest forms of social intelligence available. The person who reorganizes their life around the approval of whoever is currently in the room, that person needs to stop. Let me tell you what it actually costs. Not in the abstract, in the specific inventory of a life organized around not disappointing people. There is the job you didn't take, the one that felt right in a way you couldn't fully explain, that activated something in you that your current life rarely touches. But it required moving, or changing industries, or leaving behind a context where people knew who you were and had decided you were good. And the reaction you imagined, the questions, the concerns, the careful suggestions that maybe this wasn't the right time, weighed more than the pull of the thing itself. So you stayed, and some version of you is still standing at the door of that decision, looking at what you didn't walk through. There is the relationship you extended past its end, where both of you knew, in the way that bodies know things before minds admit them, that it was finished. But finishing it required a conversation, required disappointing someone who had organized their life around you, required being the person who ended it, with everything that comes after, the explanations, the silence, the reordering of a shared social world. And that cost seemed higher than the cost of staying. So you stayed, and gave months or years to something that had already ended because the ending was too expensive. There is the opinion you swallowed, in the meeting, at the dinner table, in the conversation where you knew something was wrong and you felt the truth forming, and then you felt the room and let it dissolve. Not once, not twice. As a practice, a consistent, habitual, largely unconscious practice of editing yourself before you arrive, deciding in advance which parts of your perspective will be acceptable, and offering only those, leaving the rest in the interior space where unspoken things accumulate. And there is the dream you put down, not dramatically, not with the ceremony that an actual decision would require. You simply stopped picking it up, started describing it in the past tense, stopped defending it against the quiet skepticism of people who didn't understand it and weren't going to. And slowly, incrementally, without a single moment you could point to as the ending, it became something you used to want rather than something you want. None of this happened because of a single person. It happened because you built a life around the question, what will this cost me in other people's reactions? And that question, used as a filter for every significant choice, produces a life that belongs to everyone except you. You know this, you have known it for a long time. The question is what you do with it. Here is what makes this particularly insidious. The costs are not dramatic. They don't arrive with the weight of a single catastrophic decision. They accumulate in the margins, in the small daily adjustments that each seem perfectly reasonable. Of course you softened the message. Of course you waited for a better moment. Of course you let that one go. Each individual choice is defensible. The aggregate is a life that was never fully lived. Think about the version of you that exists in the moments when no one is watching. The opinions you hold fully and without apology when you're alone. The things you want that you've never told anyone because telling someone would make them real, and real things can be criticized. The choices you would make if the reactions of every person in your life were removed from the equation. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is you. The you that exists before the management begins, before the calibration, before the automatic adjustment to whoever is in the room. And the distance between that version and the one you show the world is the exact measurement of how much your need for approval has cost you. Not other people's approval of you, your own. Because every time you edited yourself to fit the room, you were also sending yourself a message that the unedited version was not acceptable, that the raw, direct, unqualified version of your thoughts and preferences and directions was too much, too risky, too exposing, too likely to produce friction that you could not afford. And that message, received thousands of times across years, becomes its own kind of damage, the specific damage of someone who has been told, mostly by themselves, that who they actually are is not quite enough. Freedom is not emotional numbness. Let that land, because that is the version of not caring that most people imagine. The person who has decided to feel nothing, who has armored themselves so completely against other people's opinions that nothing gets through, who moves through the world with the specific coldness of someone who has concluded that caring is the problem and has solved the problem by eliminating the caring. That person is not free. They are frozen, still organized around other people, just in reaction against them rather than in accommodation of them. The architecture is the same. The center is still somewhere outside themselves. Freedom is choosing whose opinion deserves access to you. This is the distinction that changes everything. Not caring less, caring more selectively, curating the interior space with the same intentionality that you would bring to any environment where you spend significant time, deciding what belongs there and what doesn't, whose voice has earned the right to be heard inside your own decision-making, whose concern is worth adjusting for, and whose is simply the noise of someone who is uncomfortable with your choices for reasons that have nothing to do with your actual well-being. This requires knowing yourself well enough to tell the difference. And most people who are organized around approval don't know themselves that well, because knowing yourself requires spending time in your own company, requires sitting with your own preferences and values and reactions long enough to understand what they actually are, separate from what other people have suggested they should be. And the person who is always managing other people's reactions rarely has that time. They are too busy, too externally oriented, too focused on the reading of rooms to notice what is happening in the room inside themselves. So the practice begins there. Not with the dramatic declaration that you no longer care what anyone thinks. With the smaller, quieter, more disciplined practice of checking in with yourself before you check in with the room. Of noticing your actual response to something before you overlay it with your calculated response. Of sitting even briefly with what you actually think before you decide what you will say. This is not selfishness. It is the prerequisite for having a self. And a person with a self, a person who knows what they think and value and want independently of whoever is currently in the room, is a person who cannot be easily redirected, whose approval cannot be weaponized against them because they are not organized around needing it, whose direction is set from inside rather than negotiated continuously with every person whose opinion they encounter. That person is not cold. They are not indifferent. They care deeply about the right things for the right reasons toward the people who have earned it. They are simply no longer available to be moved by everyone. And there is something that happens in other people when they encounter this quality. Something that the person organized around approval does not expect and is not prepared for. People trust it. Not immediately, not consciously, but the person who is not performing for your approval, who is not calibrating their words to produce a specific reaction in you, who is not shaped by your response into something more acceptable, carries a quality of presence that the performing person never can. Because you know when you are around them that what they say is actually what they think, that their warmth, when it arrives, is not strategic, that their opinion, when offered, is not designed to manage you. You can trust what they say because it is not organized around your reaction. And that is rarer and more valuable than almost anything that approval-seeking behavior has ever produced. The moment you stop needing approval, you stop negotiating with your own identity. Think about what that means. Every time you adjusted what you said because of who was in the room, that was a negotiation. Every time you stayed quiet when you wanted to speak, that was a negotiation. Every time you made a decision based primarily on the reaction it would produce, rather than on what you actually believed was right, that was a negotiation. And the sum of all those negotiations, conducted over years and across every significant domain of your life, is the distance between who you are and who you have become. That distance is not fixed. It closes when you stop negotiating. Not all at once. The habits of a lifetime don't dissolve in a single decision, but incrementally, through the accumulation of small moments in which you choose your own assessment over the rooms, your own direction over the path that generates the least friction, your own voice over the adjusted version that lands more smoothly. And as that distance closes, Something happens that is difficult to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. You start to meet yourself, not the version you constructed for external consumption, not the person who learned to be easy and agreeable and acceptable. The actual person, with the actual preferences and the actual opinions and the actual sense of what matters and what doesn't, who has been there all along, waiting under all the management and the adjustment and the endless calibration of how you are perceived. That person is more interesting than the version you've been showing the world. They are also more free. The most powerful thing about not needing approval is not that it changes how others see you, though it does in ways that might surprise you. It is that it changes how you see yourself. It removes the mediating layer of other people's perceptions between you and your own experience. It lets you have a life that is yours, measured by your own values, directed by your own judgment, experienced from the inside rather than managed from the outside. You have been managing from the outside for a long time. The message you rewrote 3 times. The first version was the true one. The opinion you dissolved in the meeting. It deserved to be spoken. The dream you stopped picking up. It is still there. None of these things are gone. They are waiting, with the patience of things that know they are real, that know the management cannot continue forever, that know you will eventually run out of the energy required to maintain a version of yourself designed around other people's comfort. You are already running out. That tiredness you feel, the specific tiredness of someone who has been performing instead of living, is not weakness. It is information. It is the signal that the version you have been maintaining has cost more than it was ever worth. Stop maintaining it. Not dramatically, not with announcements or confrontations or the performance of someone who has decided to be different now. Simply by choosing, in the next moment where you would have adjusted, not to adjust. By sending the first version of the message. By saying the thing you were going to let dissolve. By picking up the dream and carrying it for one more day without asking anyone whether it is reasonable. One moment, then the next. And somewhere in the accumulation of those moments, the distance closes. And you find, waiting on the other side of all the management, the person you were before the adjusting began. The most powerful thing about not needing approval is that you finally get to meet yourself. It is time.